Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another Retro Adventures, and this time I'd like to present this, The Dwarven Glory by the Wee Warriors. Now, if you watch this channel, you'll have seen me mention the Wee Warriors before when I covered their adventure, The Palace of the Vampire Queen, which was the first ever published adventure for a role-playing game, way back in 1976, I believe it was, from memory. And they released the first adventure because TSR, Gary Gygax, didn't believe there was a marketplace for adventures or campaigns, because people would want to make things up for themselves. But obviously we Warriors thought differently. They published it, TSR distributed it to the same shops which sold Dungeons & Dragons, and it was successful. Now, I've also covered on the channel Blackmoor, and the adventure within that, The Temple of the Frog, which was the second ever published adventure. And in a review, I think that Dave Arneson did a far better job. While The Palace of the Vampire Queen laid out an adventure and gave you maps and all that, the descriptions of the rooms were very, very basic. Very similar to the way I would have done when I was 14, 15, starting to play Dungeons & Dragons, and I would draw out a map on a piece of paper and I would note down in the rooms the rules information. So what monsters were in it, what treasure, the description, all that I'd carry in my head. And that's kind of what the Palace of the Vampire Queen did, in storing all the game information in the adventure, but forgetting any descriptions at all. But Dave Arneson had done such a better job in Temple of the Frog, in the way he described certain rooms. He didn't describe them all, but he did describe certain rooms. And what he did do was describe the purpose of rooms very, very well. So he didn't detail there are 6 chairs and a table in the guard room, but he would tell you it was a guard room, and it's a guard room to protect this, and the guards are waiting in it for an alarm bell to go off, so they can go to a certain other area. And that's kind of how Dave Arneson wrote his adventure. You know, there are patrols through this area, etc., etc. He detailed how the Temple of the Frog worked, and that was very, very good. Amazingly more advanced than Palace of the Vampire Queen had been. So I'm having a look at this because I am very curious as to whether we Warriors picked up anything from that. Because of course they were first, he was second. Did they learn from the second person who did a better job, in my personal opinion? Now, another thing I have to mention is this isn't the original. This is a re-release by Pacesetter Games, and they have updated it for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. But fortunately what they've done is they've kept the original adventure intact. And they have added the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons pages to it, including descriptions and things which are longer. It's an interesting way of doing it, but fortunate for us, where we're trying to look back at an adventure from 1977, they've preserved that for us. Now, the cover of it, which originally would have been on sort of buff card, so they were making the covers slightly harder, like TSR was doing, they've got an image on it. And it's a very nice pencil-drawn or pen-drawn image. Very much better than the quality that TSR were doing. They were doing very crude images on their covers and throughout. Flicking inside, we have an image of the Vampire Queen, which is very confusing to me because the Vampire Queen isn't in this adventure. While Dwarven Glory and Palace of the Vampire Queen are set on the same island, so you probably could be running the same players through them, the Vampire Queen isn't mentioned in here. And this is obviously from the original, because it does say the Dwarven Glory. We've got an intro page, a contents page from Pacesetter Games with their crediting, July 2013, the sections. Something that people have commented on is the adventure itself has section B, C, D, E, F, and G. It has no section A. So it just seems a little odd. Continuing through, we've got their introduction. It's been 1 year since they released Palace of the Vampire Queen updated, and it's the coolest module produced by Pacesetter Games. And they're working with Peter Kerestan once again. And then we've got the intro page from the original printing. From those wonderful folks who brought you Palace of the Vampire Queen, Wee Warriors presents Dungeon Masters Kit number 2, The Dwarven Glory, a presentation of the semi-abandoned Dwarven caverns in the mountain chain on the island of Baylor. Maps may be arranged in any order wished, giving a geomorphic playing area with up to 60 variations. Because that's what this is. It's not a map where you leave point A on map A and you arrive on point B on map B. When you leave a map, you can put any map down. So you can recreate the area. People can be exploring this dungeon and it just keeps going on, and it seems almost endless. It's a very interesting way of doing it, but I think it makes it a better Dungeon Master's kit than what they were thinking, because certain of these areas you could use elsewhere, and that's where I think the real value in this, but we'll see as we go through. Fun things in the kit are 7 cavern sections showing fixtures, contents of rooms, etc. Set of pre-factored adversaries and treasures for each section, creature encounter sheet, fingertip combat sheet. At one time, the community of Dwarven Glory was a thriving and wealthy community, so wealthy in fact that the proud and strengthening heritage of dwarf history was forgotten, and the community was easy prey for Mortoc and his 10 Orc Tribes. But, though the Orcs conquered, they could not completely destroy Dwarven Glory, and there were parts of the caverns they did not even penetrate. Now the caverns echo in misty gloom, offering refuge to the forgotten and promise to the adventurer. And that's what this is, use of the kit. It explains doorways, etc. And there's a blank hex page so you can continue. It mentions Peter Keristan. He's writing here sort of first time they ran it in the basement. One weekend a game was run that saw 40 people playing. We've got the details here by Pace Setter Games for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Obviously it's pretty much the same, it's just fleshed out a bit. Different magic items. And then we've got the first map, map B. And we can see it's a corridor section, there's various rooms off it, there's a room here with bedding in it, a room with tables, etc. And we go in. This section was once served as a meeting area for visitors. Its taverns once echoed with joyful frivolities, but now its inhabitants drink with sombre mien. And we've got room 1, the tasteless tavern of Ollie the Half-Orc. 2 tables, 8 chairs, 3 barrels and fireplace. Ollie carries nothing. And it's once again very primitive in its description. It's not verbose in what's in there, but it is a bit more. It is detailing that there's a table in here, there's chairs, there's barrels, there's a fireplace. We're getting a bit more information than just the basics, but not nice descriptions as we would be used to these days. There's a sleeping room, storeroom, the Dwarven Delight Ale House. Female barmaid wears hypnotic medallion, only works for her, that charms male party members to fight each other in jealous rage over her. She will instill any female party members a feeling of insecurity and inferiority. No saving throw against medallion effects, works within sight. Magic user is neutral evil. An old drunken dwarf, a barmaid's chamber, smith's shop, a library, threads to tread boutique with racks of fine clothing in human size and 2 changing areas run by 2 sisters pixies. And then again we go on to the AD&D versions of it, where we do have, the room has several long tables and a roaring fireplace. So this is much more modern in the way it's presented. It's a description that you can just read out for players rather than reading it through and then making up a description for your players. Carry on through that, and we've got section C, a much more sort of cluttered, twisty area. Originally the first stopping off point for visitors and prisoners, this section has now become an area inhabited generally low-level riffraff. There's a visitor centre, a cooking spit, an interview room, storeroom for empty barrels, dwarf police barracks, a water well with a giant tick on the ceiling, police property storage, visitors information centre, weapons storage, 4 locked cabinets with no traps, it doesn't say what that room is, 2 tables, 5 chairs, a booking desk. So this is a police station, which seems a little odd. Will-o-wisp hovers in the room, will fake being mortally wounded and beg party's aid to get into room 5. So we're getting a bit of story here, we're getting things fleshed out somewhat. And once again we've got the AD&D versions of these, and we're on to section D. The path seems to split into areas, there's various rooms off it. And this is a general entertainment area and ties directly in with section C. Why the police station would connect to an entertainment area, I'm not sure, unless you just want to have the police on hand in case people get too unruly. But we've got the Dwarven Theatre, room with a bed and a bookcase, a gem appraisal area, refreshment stand for theatre, counterweight doors on it, an empty room, a vault, and a nightclub tavern room. So there's lots of sort of entertainment areas here. The AD&D version of it, we've got a very spiraled area with doors off the outside. Going by the way things are going, if that middle section was free, I'd think it was some kind of gladiatorial pit. But what is it? It's the mine work storage area. So the grey ooze in area, gem with lightning bolt etched on surface, no power, yellow mould on the surface, gelatinous cube, an old man who's actually an air elemental. The circular section contains gem which is scratched as if pried out of something. A dead-end corridor and a spring-mounted door. The AD&D rules, section F, mine workings. Yep, before a mining area, many mine implements litter the area. We've got the descriptions of that, including a lich. Section G, much more straightforward, just sort of tunnels and chambers. More mine areas. This was struck by disease following the Orc invasion, so there's various rooms and ore carts, a bunch of skeletons in one of the rooms, one Grahook from Gods, Demigods and Heroes. Much more complex area. This looks like lots of beds, lots of tables. This is a temple area. The remaining dwarves have become fanatical religious zealots, replacing their noble deities' ways with barbarian paganism. Got the main temple, various areas with barbarian dwarves in it. You know, chamber of the high priest, torture rooms, high priest sleeping rooms, refuse dump, dwarf guards, the AD&D section, and then a blank hex map for drawing your own section. Although for some reason what's shining through looks like a pumpkin. I can see the stalk sort of up here, a couple of eyes and a half mouth. Although I'm guessing it's just the images of the other maps pressed through. An image of Mortoc. An advert for Planet Master. I'm afraid the text is definitely unreadable in this one. And then other stuff from We Warriors. So Dwarven Glory, Misty Isles, different playing aids, different games, and the blank back cover. So, Dwarven Glory really isn't an adventure. While it's more advanced than Palace of the Vampire Queen, it's still very, very basic, leaving a lot of work to the Games Master. Obviously, if you get the Pace Setter Games version or one of the more modern ones, that work will have been done for you. But the original is leaving a lot of work up to the Games Master. But where I think it's really interesting is that these are encounter areas that you could drop in. So, when the players are going down some caves and they're going to a mine, you can drag out the map of the mine and you've got some encounters built in there. You can run in encounters in that section of it, while this is obviously in the underground, you know, an Underdark setting for the Forgotten Realms or other Dwarven perhaps in habitations, which you could drop it into. But it's useful. It's not as useful as just having an inn you could drop into on a surface adventure, but these are handy little things for a Games Master. It definitely is a Games Master kit, where it helps them out later because they've got maps, they've got encounters, they've got stats, etc. to do something with while the adventure is going slightly off track, or to save them time when they're doing game prep. They can just reach and go, oh, I remember where there was an inn, I'll use that. But anyway, it's an interesting little look, but I think I've whittled on for quite long enough as usual, so thank you very much for watching. As always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.